welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome to First Parish, Unitarian Universalists of Arlington.
We choose.
We choose.
We choose to be
a liberal religious community.
Welcoming
to all.
We encourage each other
on our spiritual journeys.
Support one another
through the changes in our lives.
And challenge the excesses
and injustices of our time.
Called to love.
To love.
To love.
And upheld by joy.
We live our faith.
Thank you all for your connection together. Whatever was shared, however it was shared, we will hold it in prayer in the coming week. As we enter into this time of prayer, I invite you to settle into a comfortable position that allows your breath to flow freely through you. As you breathe in and breathe out, let the spirit of life fill your body and mind. This is a moment in our congregation and in our country when we remember those who have passed, their legacy and their connections. Our lives are animated by a web of meaning, memory, and spirit. We may feel the presence of those we loved. We may be surrounded by their objects or be filled with the feeling of having cherished them. We carry around their imprint on our lives and we live with the intimate knowledge of their being. We also live with the difficult legacy of our country. From the harms inflicted on so many to the principles that guided a hope for democracy and freedom. As we pause to pray, I invite you to open yourself and to be present with a feeling of that which is holy and ethereal, of the spirit that animates us and connects us with each other, with our ancestors, with our animals, and with the natural world. Every day we carry with us the intangible, memories of hugs, of shared meals, of conversations and connections, and the ideas and heritage which inform our actions and our ideals. At the same time, we can feel the world throbbing with the animacy that holds our spirits and our lives. The thrumming of cicadas at night, the buzzing of bees as they pollinate, the smell of rain and fresh cut grass. As we are alive here and now, we live with all the layers of our history and with the mystery of the beloved. We choose to dwell in this space with our community, with our country, with belief in that spirit of generosity, wholeness, and the wide circle of life. I invite you to 2 minutes of silence.
At the top of the hallway leading to the classrooms was a large plywood ball locker, painted dark brown. Its hinged door was propped open during recess. When the kids came inside, they threw their balls into the locker, perhaps using up the last of their outside energy before going in to do schoolwork. The banging of the playground balls was loud, but they did not reach the child hidden inside, crouched behind a shelf. The child had gone indoors early from recess, hid in the locker, and watched from under the shelf while red rubber balls, footballs, and basketballs were put in. Once everyone had gone into class, the child left the locker unnoticed and went into the classroom. Psychologist Julius Siegel said that as children, we need just one adult to feel seen and loved and to gain the clarity and confidence to go on. He called that person a charismatic adult from whom a child gathers strength. Later, Robert Brooks, psychologist and former director of psychology at McLean Hospital, spoke of the lifelong impact that one person can have on a child's sense of hope and can foster resilience. The main characteristics of this charismatic adult is to accept children for who they are and not who you want them to be. Siegel asserted that often that person turns out to be a teacher. And for anyone who parents, teaches, heals, befriends, ministers, or mentors, basically all of us, may find, as I do, that the main ingredient to becoming a charismatic person in someone's life is love. To love someone is to accept them for who they are and not who you want them to be. To feel loved is to feel seen and to gather strength from that love. It wasn't until I was noticed and loved by my third grade teacher that I was put on the map. Mrs. Bauermeister had short brown hair and a deep, scratchy laugh, which we got to hear often. She was a mom. She laughed at my jokes. She chose to sit next to me. She talked with me. I knew I was loved and I was held in high regard by her. Once in my Lutheran elementary school, we had a Tower of Babel building contest. There were 2 prizes to be given out. One was for the tallest tower and one for the most beautiful. The prizes were hamburgers from White Castle, familiar to anyone from the Midwest. I started building the tallest castle, but it kept falling over. James Henslin had it way over me in that category anyway. I switched to the most beautiful category and layered my castle with sheets of colorful tissue paper, my favorite art media in elementary school. I can still picture my creation. And I won. Mrs. Bauermeister had noticed my artistry and rewarded me for it. James and I got burgers for lunch. Mrs. Bauermeister was my favorite teacher and one of the most important charismatic adults in my life. Sharon Salzberg, in her book Faith, talks about faithing as a verb. Faithing is the Buddhist notion of living with purpose and skill, rather than a life that depends on the results of our actions. Faith is differentiated from belief. Belief is a fixed idea of what one believes in: God, an afterlife, the paranormal, or urban legend, for example. Beliefs can serve as a reminder of what we value and provide perspective, and can provide perspective as we go through the joys and sorrows that is life. However, beliefs can be limiting. Salzberg uses an analogy to explain the relationship of belief and faith. Holding fixed beliefs is like looking at the sky through a straw. In this analogy, the sky represents the whole reality and truth of who we are and what life is all about. When we look at it through a straw of belief, it's limited. We only see one small part, and we may spend time comparing our straws, our beliefs, to those of others. Faith, on the other hand, is not a definition or an explanation of reality. Rather, faith is an active, open state that allows us the ability to explore without fear. Faith is the ability to move forward, even without knowing. Faith is described as how one lives, with hope, with purpose, and with love. Buddhism teaches that we cannot control the outcome of our actions, only the purpose and skillfulness with which we act. This is difficult to accept, especially in these times, these political times, when we need our actions to have strong effects. However, it doesn't mean that we don't act. Rather, we do what we can and act with purpose, for good, and with wholesome intentions. Consider the good that happens when we move forward with faith in generosity, kindness, and clarity. Living with faith means, importantly, living one's life holding the idea that there is a certain transcendent dimension beyond simply a mundane existence. This transcendent dimension is available at all times. We make a difference beyond a mundane existence, beyond what we do and what we perceive, beyond perhaps what we will ever know in our lives. Faithing means holding on to this feeling and knowing it exists all of the time. In a loving and beloved community, through supportive and loving acts of kindness and generosity, we learn to have faith in our own and in others' innate goodness and capacity to love. My own teachers were such important touchstones in my life. From them, I felt seen and loved. From their confidence in me, I gained the clarity, confidence, and faith to go on as I sought to find my life's work. I studied art in college and then went on to study counseling. My field training was in a high school called Dearborn Academy, right in Arlington, in a classic-looking red brick school building. What went on inside was not typical, however. Dearborn Academy was a substantially separate school, meaning that the children in attendance were unable to be successful in a public school, not even in a small classroom within a public school, due to significant emotional and behavioral issues. The classes were small, maybe 7 students each, with 1 or 2 teachers. Each classroom had a timeout room, smallish enclosures with no furniture or dangerous objects to throw or hurt others with, and where children were escorted by a teacher or counselor to keep safe during emotional outbursts. There we would talk or sit together until they calmed and self-regulated enough to rejoin their class. It was a tough field placement for me, and not just because the kids were mostly taller than me. I really didn't know if I was helping the kids, as they seemed to get upset about so many things. Freddie was a senior at the Dearborn Academy, and I was his counselor. We'd talk once a week about his life, his interests in building things, and his family. I didn't feel like I had a great relationship with him, but he came to the sessions willingly enough. In May, the school was planning an event where the parents were invited. I was in the school office one day when Freddie was on a phone call with his dad, who told Freddie that he was not going to be able to attend the event later this afternoon. Freddie immediately hung up the phone and stormed out of the office. The assistant principal and I jumped up and followed Freddie as he stomped down the stairs to his empty classroom, knowing what could happen. Freddie grabbed a chair and pushed it across the room. The assistant principal said, "Stop, Freddie." Freddie began to pick up a desk. Knowing what I had just heard in the office, I stepped forward from behind the administrator and said, "Freddie, is this about your father?" Freddie stopped, sat down at the desk, put his head down, and began to cry. I stayed and talked with him through his disappointment. I hope I was a charismatic adult for Freddie that day, and I hope that our interaction that day was a turning point for him. Later on, the assistant principal came up to me and said, "Good job today with Freddie." It was actually from those 5 words, the recognition, that I thought to myself, I can do this. I'm good at this. In that moment, I gained the clarity and confidence to know that I was able to help a child in a way that he hadn't been able to do. I was 23. I went on to become a school counselor, a mental health counselor, and a school psychologist for 32 years. Take a moment now and reflect on a charismatic and supportive person in your life, past or present. What is something you remember they said or did that made or makes a difference in your life? The idea of being there for another person, listening to that person, and accepting and highlighting their gifts is so crucial in classrooms and schools. But it does not need to end there. We can be transformative for someone at any age by paying attention to who you are with, accepting them with your whole heart, removing expectations and previously learned ideas about how the other person should present themselves, should talk, should look, should anything. Make a note of, tell them, give voice to, and highlight them and their strengths. The love you show through your actions can go a very long way in overcoming someone's pervasive and nagging self-doubt. And we can't know for certain when or even if they will feel the benefits of our attention from our companioning. And whether their perceived limitations are self-imposed or present from outside of themselves, I know that from my life experiences that the force of love rises beyond and dissolves both self-imposed and culturally imposed limitations and boundaries. What is to stop us from being a charismatic person and faithing in others? Family relationships, friendships, work relationships, First Parish relationships. Listening and communication with skillfulness is an end to itself. It can bloom into incredible results. I can't tell you how meaningful it was for me when many folks in our congregation took the time to tell me why they had nominated me for the search committee, or how my prayers or poems had moved them. This type of heartfelt connection acts as both a charismatic personal connection and builds our strong interdependence as a community. I consider these encouraging words faithing. Who in your life can you reach out to? Who can you highlight or recognize? Your faithing will be building connections that you may not ever fully appreciate. In the words of Marge Piercy, connections are made slowly. Sometimes they grow underground. You cannot always tell by looking at what is happening. More than half a tree is spread out in the soil under your feet. You might have figured out that the child from the beginning of this sermon, secreted away in that ball locker after recess, was me. That was me. What I was hiding from was not clear to me then. I know that I was hoping someone would discover me. And while no one ever knew that I hid in that locker, I was found by my teachers, and I continued to be found by others in my life. I know that finding myself and uncovering my purpose is mine and everyone's lifelong tasks, but I am fortunate to be loved for who I am and what I have to offer the world. Faithing is an ultimate concern and my life's highest priority. Acting with purpose and skill is what leads to connection with the animating force in others and in everything. One cannot control the outcomes of the expressions of faith, care, and attention that we give. There are connections that we may never know, yet they remain crucial. And on this anniversary of the birth of our democracy, we can all be a part of creating our vision of beloved community and country by acting with love.